conservatives that wanted to eliminate this, and in fact, our government is the one that stood firm to protect the supply management so as our farmers do well in the coming years.
Good job.
There will be 2.5 minutes remaining for questions and comments when the House next gets back to debate on the question. This will be, of course, for the member for Surrey Newton. We'll now go to statements by members. Déclaration de député. La députée de Repentigny.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. When the people of Lake Megantic called for a public inquiry on the rail tragedy they experienced, the Minister of Transport called them conspiracy theorists. Yet many questions remain unanswered. Here are a few. Why did Transport Canada authorize a delinquent company to operate gigantic oil tanker convoys with only one crew member on board? Why did they accept that even if the NRC warned that safety was at stake? Who decided to turn a blind eye to the well-known gaps, and what pressure did they bow to? How is it that the initial investigation identified 6 causes for the tragedy linked to only the one crew member, and why were they all erased? Why didn't the board hold an inquiry when it's authorized to do so? Why have incidents gone up? Why did an identical derailment kill 3 people in BC last February? Of all these questions, they all show that instead of insulting people, the minister should order a public inquiry immediately.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to opioid use and addiction, Canada is facing a national public health crisis.
Yes, we are.
The City of London is one that has been greatly affected. I was extremely disappointed to learn that the Ford government in Ontario has rejected funding for a permanent supervised consumption site on York Street in London.
Shameful.
Permanent supervised consumption sites save lives. Since the opioid crisis escalated in 2016, our government has taken significant action. We have invested over $331 million in efforts to respond to the crisis and address broader substance abuse. The Ford government is putting the lives of Londoners addicted to opioids at risk by saying no to this permanent consumption site. Our government will continue to monitor the situation closely and respond to the crisis at the federal level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear. Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, the Environment Minister says that if you repeat a talking point, if you say it louder, that people will totally believe it. She has been misleading Canadians by telling them that they'll receive all the money they pay for the carbon tax back. All the money totally back. Well, Mr. Speaker, I got my climate action rebate when I did my taxes this year. $169 is what I received. But, Mr. Speaker, it's costing me $10 more every time I fill up with gas each week. And if you add that up over the year, that's more than $500. And that's before you add in the increased cost of home heating, groceries, etc. Clearly, the Liberals are taking more from my pocket and from the pocket of all other Canadians with this carbon tax. And they definitely are not giving it back. Not all the money, not totally back. This carbon tax is not as advertised.
Oh, here.
The Honourable Member for Malpak.
Mr. Speaker, today I recognize this year's laureates for the PEI Business Hall of Fame. Jack and Carlotta Kelly founded Bulk Carriers PEI in 1970 from the basement of their house. Today, the company has over 150 employees, 100 tractor trailers, and a reputation for trust and excellence across the country. Kevin and Kathy Murphy are hospitality all-stars. Opening their first restaurant in 1980, the Murphys quickly expanded their operation to include hotels, restaurants, and breweries across Atlantic Canada. Sadly, inductee Kathleen K. McPhee died last month. Kay used her expertise and passion as a teacher to create literacy software for children, helping her hearing-impaired son Lowell and countless others develop reading and language skills. Each of these laureates reflect the best of the island that it has to offer and have made enduring contributions to Canada. Congratulations to all.
Honourable Member for Desnethie, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the National Day of Healing and Reconciliation and the anniversary of the government's apology for residential schools. As MPs, we recognize the harms that Canada has inflicted on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Though we can never truly understand the loss of culture, language, and family separation Canada has caused, I continue to be inspired by young people across Canada working on building a path forward, including people like Renee Carrier and her students at the Charlevoix Community School in Cumberland House. Their book called Muskrats and Fire teaches youth about Indigenous cultural practices and how they benefit the ecosystem in northern Saskatchewan. Reconciliation and healing are done in both small and profound ways, and I challenge all Canadians to follow the example of the students at Charlevoix School to turn the promise of reconciliation into action within their community. Hi, hi.
Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend under sunny skies, thousands of people converged on Riverside Park for the 33rd annual Guelph District Multicultural Festival. Local craft vendors, performers, and food vendors shared their passion for art, culture, and cuisine. On the main stage, performers shared their cultural music and dance, while from the giant food tent, you could tour the world sampling food from 25 countries. Wow. I want to thank the organizing committee, chaired by Anu Saxena, and Executive Director Mayor Perak, and also the sponsors and many volunteers that make this event an amazing success every single year. Bravo. Canada was the first country in the world to adopt a multiculturalism policy, and is the foundation for what makes Canada the true north, strong and free country that we all are proud to call home. Canada needs to continue to be compassionate, accepting, and welcoming as a country that is an example to the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, by an unhappy coincidence, it was 4 years ago today that I first urged the House to place automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, into all its 5,600 RCMP cruisers. Based on the experience of other Canadian police forces, this would have saved the lives of over 300 heart attack victims a year at a one-time cost of $5 million, plus maintenance. Well, 4 years have gone by and the RCMP has done nothing but invent excuses for its inaction. And so, 1,200 Canadians who would have been alive today are now dead. We could fill this room 4 times over with the bodies of those who died because we couldn't find the $5 million. On the other hand, we parliamentarians have had no trouble finding over 100 times as much, $500 million, to renovate the building in which we meet today. And if estimates are right, we'll spend even more on Centreblock. Could we take just 1% of that to save 300 lives next year and the year after and the one after that? Or do we just not care?
Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great pride that I rise today to honor the Highland Creek community in Scarborough Rouge Park. Once the epicenter of residential and business activity in the former township of Scarborough, Highland Creek is now one of the last remaining historical villages in the city of Toronto. Now in its 34th year, the Highland Creek Heritage Festival is a yearly highlight for local residents and is supported by a number of key community institutions, including the Tony Stacey Centre for Veteran Care, Royal Canadian Legion 258, St. Joseph's Catholic Church, University of Toronto Scarborough Campus, and countless local artisans and businesses. I want to thank the Highland Creek Community Association and its president, David Adamson, for the leadership in bringing the community together. In addition to the festival, this organization puts together the annual Christmas tree lighting, community cleanup, fundraisers, and much more. The Highland Creek Village exemplifies the very best of Canadian diversity, and I invite all residents to join us on Saturday, June 15th at the Highland Creek Heritage Festival.
Bravo, bravo. The Honourable Member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to discuss some of the investments that have been made in Surrey Centre. $7.5 million for a safe, proactive Surrey prevention and intervention program for 4,500 at-risk youth. $60 million for a new RCMP forensic lab opening later this summer. Excellent. $21 million for a new Surrey Central SkyTrain station.
Fantastic.
$1.6 billion for the Surrey Rapid Transit line along the Fraser Highway. $45 million for SFU Surrey's new $125 million sustainable engineering and environmental engineering building. and over $200 million for our children through the Canada Child Benefit Program that has assisted over 24,000 kids in Surrey Centre last year. I'd like to express my sincerest gratitude to the members of Surrey Centre for allowing me to represent their voices in Ottawa. Thank you, Surrey Centre, for allowing me to make Surrey the best place to live, learn, work, and play. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Dodge, dip, duck, dive, dodge. These, Mr. Speaker, are the 5 Ds of dodgeball. But a group of meddlesome academics have now said that dodgeball is a tool of oppression. This is a game as old and storied as recess itself. Who here among us doesn't remember the sting of a well-placed shot, the thrill of that critical catch, or the shame of crossing the center line? Dodgeball was an important part of phys ed, of summer camp, and of recess. But now dodgeball in particular, and fun in general, are under attack. These ultra-woke busybodies are trying to throw a wrench in our fun. Well, in the immortal words of Patches O'Houlihan, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Well, Mr. Speaker, at Balgonie Elementary, I could dodge a wrench. Mr. Speaker, dodgeball isn't a tool of oppression. It's not part of some secret plot to reinforce gender identity or to abuse students. This is a game, and it's fun. So the fun police, we say, keep your hands off our dodgeballs.
Order. The Honourable Member for Laval-Les-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In memory, never has a federal government worked so hard to fulfill its commitments, turn the economy around, and rebuild Canada's reputation, which was tarnished under the previous Conservative reign. Today, Canada has the best financial situation in the G7. I want to tell the people of Laval-Les-Îles that I am proud to be part of a Liberal government team. Our government was elected to grow the middle class. It is obvious that our plan is working. Above all, according to the UN, Canada ranks 7th when it comes to the happiest people in the world. At the end of my first term in the Commons, I want to take this opportunity to say mission accomplished and to thank the people of Laval-Les-Îles for their confidence and friendship. Promises made, promises kept. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, the Canadian Cancer Survivors Network held a working breakfast to share concerns and ideas for cancer victims with MPs and senators. As a double cancer survivor myself, I truly appreciate their efforts. Led by President Jackie Manthorn, the network ensures that patients and survivors obtain current knowledge about cancer treatment options and outcomes. Dr. Paul Wheatley-Price, medical oncologist at the University of Ottawa, told us about exciting new treatments that are already having a significant impact on the chances for successful recovery from lung cancer. Dr. Wheatley-Price emphasized that there is standardized early testing for breast cancer, colon cancer, and skin cancer, but there's none for lung cancer. Dr. Price has asked parliamentarians to encourage the government to invest in a lung cancer screening strategy, and I think it is safe to say that parliamentarians will do just that. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're a mere 4 months from an election, and I'm proud to say that the Conservative Party has almost completed recruiting its candidates. In Quebec alone, we have appointed 85% of candidates out of 78 as of today. These are men and women from all different fields: education, health, the media, agriculture, the municipal world, the business community, and accounting. And the Lord knows we will need accountants to clean up the huge deficit left by the Prime Minister. We're focusing on an inspirational leader, a competent, committed, and determined team. The quality of our team, with our ambitious, rigorous, and responsible election platform, will, I am sure, easily meet people's expectations. Mr. Speaker, we are readier than ever before to get back to power. On October 21st, we will be cleaning up this House. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, following the election, our government undertook the biggest infrastructure initiative in the history of Canada. For our communities, modern infrastructure are the pillars of a strong economy and better living conditions. In this spirit, our government announced yesterday an investment of $82 million to complete Highway 35, critical infrastructure to facilitate trade and movement between Montreal and Boston. We also brought back university training to the Saint-Jean Military College, and that is another foundational commitment we made. Those are two Liberal government accomplishments, and they will give hope to future generations by delivering the necessary infrastructure. That is the Liberal vision, and our plan is working. Our local initiatives are helping Canadian society to reach new summits since we were elected.
Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Filipino community has left its mark in Saskatoon West, particularly in the neighborhood of Confederation Park, a wonderful neighborhood many Filipinos are proud to call home. As Canada celebrates our first official Filipino Heritage Month, this weekend I'll be in Saskatoon for our city's first Philippines Festival. I can't wait to participate in the festivities organized by the Filipino-Canadian Association of Saskatoon. Mar Completo and Rosalie Apostol, President and Vice President of FILCUS, and the many volunteers from the Filipino community have been busy organizing the festival since December. After flag raising at City Hall, the Cosmos Civic Center will come alive, offering Saskatoon residents the chance to experience Filipino food, games, art, and culture. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to say I was a member of the Parliament that voted unanimously declared June as Filipino Heritage Month in Canada. To all our Filipino-Canadian friends in Saskatoon and across Canada, salamat and see you on Saturday.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are getting hosed at the pumps, no thanks to this Prime Minister. Recently, the Canadian press reported that rebates from the Liberal carbon tax are much lower across the country than had been promised. Canadians are feeling the increased costs on everyday essentials such as groceries, home heating, and gasoline. That's a far cry from the Liberal leader's claim that 8 out of 10 families will get more money back than they pay into his scheme. So between all the ums and ahs and the confusing world of water bottles, Canadians are realizing they cannot believe anything this Liberal Prime Minister says. The proof is in the pudding with his do as I say and not do as I do attitude as he jets around the world on more taxpayer-funded vacations with zero regard to his carbon emissions. What he says and what he does never match. Mr. Speaker, it is hardly a surprise that the Liberals' carbon tax rebates are much lower than expected. Much like the Liberal leader, they are not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I celebrate the enormous accomplishments of Canadians and our government on reaching a total of 1 million jobs since November 2015. With our government's vision, responsible spending, and a strong commitment to Canadians, this country was able to create 27,700 full-time jobs in May alone. This is what we promised, and this is what we will continue to deliver for Canadians. Growing the middle class is important to us, and we are making it possible thanks to a responsible, strategic investments that we have made in Canadians over the last 4 years. Mr. Speaker, we've been able to achieve the lowest unemployment rate on record because of the benefits of skilled training, the Canada Child Benefit, and tax cuts to the middle class. This is felt in the lives of people in my riding of Labrador, but all across Canada. It is helping their families. Mr. Speaker, just as...
Questions orales. Order. Order. Questions orales. Oral questions. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister at the beginning of his term said that he would strive to have a better relationship with the provinces. Well, today we've heard from 5 premiers of provinces and 1 premier from a territory that they in fact have grave concerns about 2 bills that we're considering here. They've expressed their concerns with respect to investment in their property, in their provincial territories. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know through you whether the Prime Minister will heed the concerns of the premiers and accept the amendments from the Senate.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we believe in an independent Senate that makes its decisions based on the best interests of their communities, and that's why we welcome the fact that the amendments made by the senators are something that we will take a look at. We will make a decision on which ones improve the bill and make it better, and that's what we will be doing. That's what we believe in. But, Mr. Speaker, the fact that Conservative premiers have been threatening national unity if they don't get their way is completely irresponsible and needs to be condemned by anyone who aspires to be Prime Minister of this great country.
That's right.
Order. Order. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, with respect to relationships with premiers, regardless of political stripe, let's take a look at what the former Liberal Premier of British Columbia has said about this Prime Minister. Quote, when you're walking around thinking you're not first among equals, but that you're the only one who has no equal, which I think is the Prime Minister's modus operandi, when it comes to premiers, you've got a problem. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know from the Prime Minister, will he take the concerns of the premiers seriously regarding uncertainty in investment in their provinces and accept the full amendments from the Senate?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of our time in office as a government, we have engaged with the premiers in a constructive, collaborative way. Because for 10 years, Stephen Harper refused to even meet with the premiers in First Minister's meeting. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, we believe in constructive relationships. Unfortunately, we don't consider it to be a constructive relationship when the premiers threaten national unity issues if they don't get their way. We're going to make decisions on what's in the best interest of Canada, and we will take a look at what the senator said.
Order. I'm having trouble hearing the answer. I had no trouble hearing the question. Members, whether they like the answer or what is said here or not, should respect the right of members to have their say and not interrupt. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, these premiers represent 59% of the Canadian population and 63% of Canada's GDP, and they're warning that these 2 bills produce insurmountable roadblocks for major infrastructure projects that jeopardize jobs, growth, and investor confidence. And yes, Mr. Speaker, they are pointing to their concerns about whether or not this Prime Minister is bringing on a constitutional crisis in this country. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, consider the amendments from the Senate, and agree to every single one of them?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the amendments proposed by the Senate is to make Indigenous consultations optional. I don't think Canadians want to go back to Stephen Harper's years of ignoring Indigenous peoples in how we build resource projects. That's a good way to get nothing done the way Stephen Harper did over 10 years. What we're going to do is take a good look at those amendments and move forward in a way that improves the bills. What we will not do is accept that premiers say there's a threat to national unity if we don't get our way. That is not the way to hold this country together.
Order. Honorable Député.
The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, Ontario, New Brunswick, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and now the Northwest Territories have just written an urgent letter to the Prime Minister asking him to amend or scrap Bills C-69 and C-48. It's simple. The provinces want to be respected for what they are, valued partners. When will this centralizing and paternalistic Prime Minister respect the premiers and their governments who were democratically elected. Mr. Speaker, when Conservative premiers talk about threats to national unity if they don't get what they want, that's irresponsible. From the very beginning, we started working in partnership with the provinces. We have built very good relationships, and I think it's unfortunate that Conservative premiers need to play games with national unity. I'm happy to see that Quebec is being a good partner when it comes to environmental protection, but Conservatives across the country are not taking action to protect the environment or to listen to Indigenous peoples. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the relationships between this Prime Minister and our provincial partners is abysmal. This centralizing and paternalistic government is constantly attacking, at every opportunity, provincial premiers. It's clearer than ever today that the Prime Minister's incompetence and stubbornness are harming national unity. So my question is simple. Will this government finally hear the concerns of our valued provincial partners and their governments? They were democratically elected. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's not just Conservative premiers who are threatening national unity. It's this member who's been talking about threats to national unity in this country if we don't do what he wants, if we don't backpedal to the Harper years. Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward responsibly by listening to the concerns of people about the environment, by working in partnership with Indigenous peoples, because we know that that's how we will move forward as a country. The fact that the Conservatives are playing political games with national unity is totally irresponsible.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Small businesses, families, students, teachers, everybody needs access to the internet and good cellular services. But the Liberals and Conservative governments have allowed cell phone companies and telecom companies to gouge Canadians to the point that now they're making $7.5 billion in profits. New Democrats have a plan to stop the gouging. We would place a price cap on cell phone bills. Why have the Liberals failed to stand up to big telecom? Why have they failed to protect Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, on the contrary, when it comes to telecommunications, we've taken steps to support affordability, competition, and consumer interests. We've seen encouraging steps in the right direction. Prices are up to 32% lower in regions with more competition, and there are now low-cost data plans, but we recognize that more must be done. We issued policy directives to CRTC so consumer interests must be considered when making decisions. We directed the CRTC to investigate high-pressure sales tactics, and we will continue to take action so Canadians can get reliable and affordable telecommunications services.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Liberal and Conservative governments have let companies make billions of dollars on the backs of Canadians. It's unacceptable. It's time to stand up and defend people. The problem is that the Liberals and Conservatives have overly cozy relationships with these big companies. When will the government put people before telecom companies? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're committed to ensuring that telecommunications services are affordable and high quality all across the country. We've seen progress. Prices are up to 32% lower in areas where there's more competition. We've now seen that there are low-cost data plans, but I recognize that there's more work to do, and that's why we gave a directive to the CRTC stating that consumers' interests need to be taken into consideration when decisions are made. We will continue to take action to ensure that telecom services are affordable and reliable. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. We have the courage to stand up to those big telecommunications companies. Having access to cell and internet services is essential for teachers, young people, small businesses, and so on. But currently, access is neither affordable nor reliable. We have the courage to aim for better. When will the Prime Minister join us in order to reduce costs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not only are we ensuring that there's more competitiveness, we're also making investments all across the country to ensure that people have access to reliable telecommunications services, that there is proper internet connectivity in rural areas, that there are more cell towers. We are delivering on our promise of ensuring that Canadians be better connected at a more affordable rate. We know there's more work to do, but we've made enormous progress in the last 4 years, and we will continue to do so.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Money laundering in BC and across Canada is one of the reasons why housing has become so unaffordable, and it's also fueled organized crime. Now we learn, according to new reports, that the member for Richmond's law firm facilitated a secretive transaction that may have helped a drug cartel launder money through a Vancouver condo development. According to experts, this type of deal should have raised huge flags. My question is this: has the Prime Minister spoken to the member for Richmond about his law firm's potential involvement in money laundering?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We are committed to a robust regime to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. With Budget 2019, we created the Action, Coordination and Enforcement Team and the Money Laundering Centre of Expertise, which will help better identify and meet evolving threats. We've provided over $160 million to the RCMP, to FinTrack and to the CRA to support policing and real estate audit teams, whereas the Conservatives cut over $500 million from the RCMP's budget. We're ensuring that our law enforcement teams have the resources they need.
Order. Honorable Député.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Canada has called wage growth mediocre. The citizens of Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord feel like the cost of living is increasing faster than their salaries are. They can't afford any more tax hikes. And their government is not setting a good example. It's piling up mountains of debt. Everyone knows that they're going to have to increase taxes to finance their spending. When will the Minister of Finance admit it? The Honourable Minister of Finance, or rather the Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Canada's debt, 72% of it was actually accumulated by Conservative administrations, including much of it under Stephen Harper. So before they talk to us about balancing the budget, I think that they should eat humble pie. And, Mr. Speaker, we had an extremely low growth rate for a decade under Harper, when in 2018 we've had the strongest wage growth in years. We've created 1 million jobs over the last 3 years, and we've done all of this while reducing poverty by 20%, which they never thought would be a good thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, nearly half of Canadians are just $200 or less away from not being able to pay their bills. Many of them say that they could work more, but it wouldn't be worth it because, they say, every hour of overtime is eaten up by the government. The Liberals are racking up deficits, and those deficits will have to be paid back at some point. What is their plan to balance the budget? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you very clearly that our plan is not to follow the failed Conservative economic policies, which led to the worst growth since the Great Depression, stagnant wages, and, Mr. Speaker, unemployment rates that we have now seen through our policies, the lowest rate in recorded history. In addition to that, we are making investments that we're seeing that through these investments, over 1 million new jobs are being created. Mr. Speaker, there are lots of lessons from the Conservative economic record, but unfortunately they were terrible and we're not going to follow them.
Order. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, middle-class tax increases under these Liberals are starting to take their effect. The reality is that Canadians now face higher delinquency rates as a result of the government's policies, and half of Canadians are within $200 every month of insolvency. Worse yet, the government will not rule out tax increases if it's re-elected. When will they admit that if elected, the Liberals will impose new and massive tax increases to pay for their out-of-control spending?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
once again, the member opposite is frankly wrong. One of the first measures we introduced was lowering taxes for the middle class, making the Canada Child Benefit more generous and making it tax-free, something the Conservatives used to tax. Mr. Speaker, again, we will continue to focus on Canadians. We're not going to follow the Conservatives' plan who are taking marching orders from Doug Ford, which is cut now, think later. We're investing in Canadians, and as a result, our plan is working.
The honourable member for Carleton.
No, they're taking marching orders from the Prime Minister's mentor, Kathleen Wynne. Doubled Ontario's debt, doubled electricity costs, and lied in 4 elections about Liberal plans to raise taxes on Ontarians. And that is exactly what this Prime Minister is doing, driving up power bills, driving up the debt, and we can't say the word in the House of Commons, but hiding the fact that he's going to raise taxes if re-elected. Right. Why won't he admit those higher costs now so Canadians can vote on whether they want to pay them?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's really sad that the Conservatives are attempting to rewrite history, but Canadians aren't going to forget the fact that they added $150 billion to the debt, and they had nothing to show for it. Mr. Speaker, the worst growth since the Great Depression. We have reduced unemployment rates to the lowest rate in recorded history, and as a result, a typical Canadian family is actually $2,000 off per year. Mr. Speaker, we will not follow the Conservative failed plans, and it's time they start telling the truth to Canadians.
Order, there's far too much noise. Members need to show respect for this institution and for the right of others to say things with which they don't agree. It's kind of fundamental to democracy. The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, the truth is that during the great global recession, Conservatives had the smallest deficits and the smallest debt of any country in the G7, and the Liberals at the same time said, spend more, spend now, spend faster. They said we should do like Kathleen Wynne, which was to lie in 4 elections about tax increases while doubling the debt and doubling power bills. That is exactly the strategy of this Prime Minister, to hide his tax increases until after the election when he no longer needs Canadians' votes.
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's glad the Conservatives are now admitting that they think their $150 billion of debt was tiny. We don't agree with that, and while they were increasing that debt, they were cutting supports for seniors, for our veterans, and for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we invest in Canadians, and as a result, we see that we have the best growth and one of the best economies in the G7. Through these investments, in addition to that, we've created over 1 million jobs. I will continue to say it louder until the Conservatives wake up and understand that investing in Canadians is the only way to grow the economy.
The honourable member for Carleton. Order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they actually did think Conservative debts were tiny because they kept asking for us to make them bigger. And that's precisely what they have done since they took office. Following Kathleen Wynne, they're trying to drive up debt, which means future tax increases down the road. Yep. And they won't even deny it. Yep. Unlike Kathleen Wynne, they're not even hiding their plans to raise taxes again on the middle class. If this government is not going to raise taxes, will they tell us how it is they're possibly going to erase their deficit without imposing higher taxes on Canadians?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our focus and our plan has been clear since day one. Investing in Canadians, grow the economy, and create an economy that works for everybody. We stopped sending checks to millionaires like the Conservatives did, and as a result, we have seen the growth rate increase. We have seen these investments working with over 1 million new jobs created. But, Mr. Speaker, let's remind Canadians of what Conservative cuts look like. Just look at Doug Ford in Ontario. Cuts now, think later.
member. Order. The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after months of the NDP calling for a ban on single-use plastics, the Liberal government has finally announced a proposal that still doesn't name which plastics will be banned. Canadians are finding the Liberals' commitment to banning plastics hard to believe, when just last year they handed a $35 million grant to a company to expand plastic production. When Liberals keep subsidizing the plastics industry, how can Canadians know that this isn't just another empty promise?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I was very happy yesterday to announce with the Prime Minister that we will be taking action to ban harmful single-use plastics. We know we've got a problem. We've got too much plastics in our oceans, our lakes, our rivers, and we can do better. We know that we can take action in plastic straws, plastic bags, that we can innovate, we can reduce our plastic, that I appreciate the member opposite's advocacy, but we're not just taking talk, we're taking action, and I'm very pleased what we did yesterday.
The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
So Liberals say they'll ban single-use plastics at the same time as they're handing over tens of millions of dollars to increase plastic production. There's a word for this, Mr. Speaker: utter hypocrisy. And the Liberals' approach to Trans Mountain has been equally hypocritical. First, they promised to change Stephen Harper's discredited process, then they adopted it. They also pumped $4.5 billion of Canadians' money into a pipeline project that is bad for the environment and the economy, and now they're talking about delaying announcing their rubber stamp approval next week. When will Liberals come clean with British Columbians and with Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think this will be a good opportunity for the leader of the NDP to actually clarify whether he supports a $40 billion LNG investment, the single largest private sector investment in our oil and gas sector. As far as the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is concerned, Mr. Speaker, we are in the process of concluding our meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities, and our decision will be made before June 18th.
Well, member for Calgary-Mindapore.
Monsieur le Président. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister changed the rules to allow government-funded influencers to get involved in elections, again using his power to try to rig the elections. The Chief Electoral Officer agrees that a campaign involving social media influencers would be politically sensitive. Will the Prime Minister finally reveal the names of these 13 influencers? The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
One political party in this House, the Conservative Party of Canada, that doesn't want Canadians to vote. They also don't want Canadians to be informed about voting, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadians trust the Chief Electoral Officer. And let's take a moment to reflect on why the Conservatives don't. Because they cheat. Then they get caught cheating, and then they have to pay the consequences for cheating. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would ask the Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions to be judicious in her comments and not accuse people of breaking the law. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Mindapore.
That's ironic coming from a Liberal government that has no problem breaking the law. We've seen Liberal ministers exchanging cash for assets, our current Prime Minister being the first in Canadian history to be found guilty of breaking ethics laws, and the Prime Minister interfering in not one but two criminal prosecutions. Canadians are still waiting for the Liberals to return the money they stole in the sponsorship scandal. Now government-funded influencers urging people to vote risk the appearance of further political interference in the election. When will the Liberals tell us who they are?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, when you break the law, you have to pay the consequences. As the Conservatives had time and time again. Let's go through the facts, Mr. Speaker. In 2006, we saw the In-N-Out campaign finance scandal that the Conservatives Party eventually pleaded guilty to. In 2008, we saw the campaign finance irregularities to jail, Mr. Speaker. In 2011, Mr. Speaker, we also saw the Conservatives mislead Canadians in terms of where to voting, and the list.
Members can't expect the chair to police things that can't be heard. Order. L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said he expects a dirty campaign, and he's already stooping to new lows. He's letting his friends, third parties like Unifor and Engage Canada do the dirty work for him. After having asked Unifor to distribute $600 million to the media, well, here comes the payback. An unprecedented, unfair, multi-million-dollar ad campaign that skirts Elections Canada rules and targets our leader and future Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister associated with these partisan interest groups? Is there a secret agreement? Canadians have the right to know.
The
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions. Mr. Speaker, as I've said several times in this House, there is one party in this place that does not trust our election system or our democratic institutions. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians do trust them, and all members of this House should too, because they are playing such a dangerous game here with our democracy. Mr. Speaker, we overturned the clauses that are not fair for Canadians in our bill, and it's important for Canadians to be able to know where they can vote and how they can vote, and we won't change that. Thank you.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Toronto Raptors lost last night, but at the end of the game, the Prime Minister was smiling from ear to ear. That's because anti-conservative attack ads ran in prime spots during the game, and the Liberal Party didn't have to spend a cent because a special interest group called Engage Canada did their dirty work for them. Now, Unifor has bragged about bankrolling Engage Canada to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. When will the Prime Minister stop stacking the deck and finally kick Unifor off of the panel that will decide which media outlets get $600 million in government bailouts from these guys?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Here we go again, Mr. Speaker. Another attack on unions. Why are the Conservatives so afraid of middle-class workers, Mr. Speaker? Remember this, under the Harper regime, they waged a war on workers' rights. They made it more difficult for workers to organize freely, more difficult to bargain collectively, more work in safe environments. And unlike the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, we understand that unions are a partner and not the enemy.
Order. Order. The other member for Hope and others will come to order. L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Today, June 11th, is the 181st anniversary of my region, Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. We have experienced issues of late with all the trade conflicts, and there'll be more to come with the new NAFTA. We have often said that this is a bad deal for dairy farmers and for workers who will be poorly protected. This is not what the Liberals announced at the onset of negotiations. People were expecting a better deal, but they got a worse one. What does the government plan to do to compensate those who will be getting the short end of the stick with this NAFTA deal, especially dairy farmers? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. They are playing a dangerous game. It would seem that they've supported this deal with enthusiasm. And then the NDP leader celebrated it at an event in Ottawa. So the member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie stated that the new NAFTA is, and I quote, the best agreement possible that protects workers across the country. And now they're changing things and want to open up Pandora's box.
Mr. Speaker, today again, the minister called the new NAFTA a win-win-win. Only Liberals would call increasing the cost of medication for vulnerable Canadians a win. Oh, wait, now I know what she meant. I know who's winning. It's Big Pharma. Are they so desperate to get...
I apologize to my member for Essex for interrupting. I understand that there was a problem with the interpretation. It is now working. I'd ask her to start again.
Mr. Speaker, today again, the minister called the new NAFTA a win-win-win. win-win. Only Liberals would call increasing the cost of medication for vulnerable Canadians a win. Oh, wait. Now I know what she means. Who is winning? It's Big Pharma. Are they so desperate to get a deal that they caved to Trump and Big Pharma again? The PBO study on drug costs in the New Deal revealed it will cost $169 million in the first year alone. Can the minister explain to Canadians suffering from Crohn's and diabetes why she wants them to pay more for their medications?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, let me quote Hassan Youssef, the president of the Canadian Labour Congress. He says the new NAFTA, and I quote, gets it right on labour provisions. Canada did its job. We negotiated a great deal for Canadian workers. And I am astonished, Mr. Speaker, that the NDP, which claims to support working Canadians, is prepared, for the sake of scoring political points, to risk reopening this Pandora's box. I don't think the car workers of Essex want that to happen.
Order. Honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, our economic plan is working in my riding of Cloverdale, Langley City, and across Canada. On Friday, the numbers were released showing that British Columbia has the lowest unemployment rate in Canada, and we're a leader in Canada's job growth. Mr. Speaker, I know that employers and businesses in Cloverdale, Langley City are working hard to create jobs and keep our economy growing. Can the Minister of Employment please tell my constituents what we're doing to support BC's growth?
Ask the member for Caribou Prince George not to be yelling when someone else has the floor, no matter what, and it's important that we hear others order and what they have to say. Order. And you must not disregard directives from the chair. Honourable Minister of Employment.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Cloverdale Langley for the excellent question. And I will say, Mr. Speaker, confident countries invest in themselves, and that's exactly what we've been doing since we were elected in 2015. While Conservatives continue to make cuts that hurt all across this country, we will always choose to invest in Canadians. We will always choose to create jobs and grow our economy. Our plan is working. Canadians have created over 1 million jobs. We have the lowest unemployment rate on record, and wages have grown by 2.8%. Mr. Speaker, our economy is growing, our middle class is growing, and more Canadians are working than ever before.
The honourable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, from day one, my province of Saskatchewan has been fighting tooth and nail against the Liberal carbon tax because we knew all along it was a scam.
Exactly.
Turns out we were right. Not only are the Liberals charging the GST on top of their carbon tax, but residents in Saskatchewan are receiving significantly less than this Prime Minister promised through his so-called rebate. When will this Prime Minister that, just like him, his carbon tax is not as advertised?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Speaker, it's really unfortunate that the Premier of Saskatchewan, who came to COP21 with me, doesn't understand the importance of taking action on climate change, doesn't understand that we can no longer make it free to pollute, that we have done exactly what we promised. We put a price on pollution and are giving all the money back. A family of 4 will receive more under our plan. 80% of families will be better off. That has been confirmed by the Parliamentary Budget Office. But just like Doug Ford, all the Conservatives have for climate is a sticker campaign and misinformation.
Yeah, Dougie.
Order. The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Oh, I'm sure Premier Moe would love to hear that. No matter how loud the Environment Minister said it and how many times she repeated it, Canadians have been totally misled on the Liberal carbon tax rebate scheme. We now know that residents in New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario receive much less than they were led to believe under the Liberal rebate scheme. What is true, however, is that every Canadian is now paying more in these provinces for the necessities of life because of the Liberal carbon tax. Now that we know the truth, will the Prime Minister finally admit that his carbon tax is not as advertised?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
I really wish Conservative politicians wouldn't say things that are false. That we know a family of 4 in Saskatchewan will receive $609. Every family of 4 in Saskatchewan. Wow. We have been clear about this, but what hasn't been clear, or maybe it is really clear, is that the Conservatives don't care about climate change. They don't care about taking the opportunity of clean growth, that all their big plan for the climate is to spread misinformation, mislead Canadians, and not grow the economy and not do what's right for our kids.
Order. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Another falsehood from the Minister of the Environment. On the one hand, the Liberals are saying that Canada will meet its Paris targets. On the other, institutions such as the Environment Commissioner, Climate Action Network, and even the UN have confirmed that Canada won't meet its targets. Who do you believe, Mr. Speaker? Reminder, the Liberals invested more than $4 billion in a pipeline. How can this government say such a falsehood and force Canadians to believe them in terms of the environment? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, it's surprising from a member of Quebec to speak against action on the environment and action to fight climate change. We're working with the government of Quebec that does have a price on pollution. What's happening in Quebec? The economy is growing. They have got good jobs. And the clean tech sector is expanding. They're doing what they have to do for our children and our grandchildren. That's fighting climate change.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, the Prime Minister's environment plan is spiraling out of control. We know from his own officials that the Liberals won't meet their Paris targets. This comes as no surprise because they don't have a climate plan, they have a tax plan. But yesterday, we also found out that the Prime Minister's plan is a drink box, water bottle sort of thing. Those are his words. When will the Prime Minister admit that he won't meet his Paris targets?
Honourable Minister of Environment. Order.
Mr. Speaker, we've been clear. We need to take action on climate change. We need to grow our economy. What is also clear is that the party opposite are taking their marching orders from oil lobbyists, that they don't believe that we need to take action on climate change. They want to kill Bill C-69, which would ensure that we're making decisions on environmental assessments on major projects based on science, based on Indigenous consultation, based on ensuring good projects go ahead in a timely way. When will they get it? The environment and the economy go together in the 21st century.
Order. The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill should not be yelling when someone else has the floor. No member should do that. We should have respect for the right of members to speak. That can only exist if others are silent at the time. The honourable member for Desnessy, McNippy, Churchill River.
Helen is a senior living in Meadow Lake. Every month she goes a little more into debt because she is on a limited income and has expensive medical bills. Now the CRA is going after Helen for back taxes she can't afford to pay. And yet the Liberals are giving up millions of dollars to big companies through tax loopholes created by the Conservatives. Why is this government making life harder for seniors like Helen instead of fighting for their right to live with dignity?
Minister for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker.
To improving of seniors, and we have been working very hard to do this. We have enacted a number of measures. We've restored the age of eligibility for OAS and GIS from 67 to 65. This prevented 100,000 seniors from going into poverty. Yes. We've increased the GIS for the most vulnerable single seniors. This lifted 57,000 seniors out of poverty and had a positive impact on 900,000 seniors across this country. In Budget 2019, we are also increasing the GIS exemption from 3,500 to 5,000, and for the first time, including self-employed seniors, we're going to continue to work hard for seniors.
The Honourable Minister, Member for Cynthia Saint-Bagot. Members of my Seniors Committee are telling me that they're having a hard time paying for their rent and medications. We should be helping them by making life more affordable. But instead, the Liberals have chosen to give millions to big corporations through tax loopholes. Lise, a 71-year-old senior in my riding, tells me how often she feels forgotten by the Liberals and by the Conservatives before them. Why do the Liberals prefer to help the rich instead of supporting Lise and other seniors? The Honourable Minister of Seniors.
And as I have said, with respect to the two measures, rolling back the OAS and the GIS and increasing the GIS, we have lifted or prevented over 150,000 seniors from going into poverty. But it doesn't stop there, Mr. Speaker. We've also created the first ever national housing strategy, a $55 billion investment to create safe, secure, affordable housing for seniors. What else? $6 billion into home care and palliative care, enhancing CPP so seniors of the future are going to get an increase of 50% on their CPP, automatically enrolling GIS, investing $100 million in the New Horizons for Seniors program.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal MP for Richmond East's law firm granted a bear trust to a presumed member of a Chinese cartel, Big Circle Boars. The agreement was reached while Kwok Chung Tam was still serving a drug trafficking sentence. Moreover, we have learned that the BC Law Society took control of this MP's law firm and that he's no longer a member of this society. Obviously, things aren't going very well for him. Question: has this MP exerted pressure on cabinet members with respect to money laundering?
Board of Security.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to our government's efforts to deal with the threat posed by money laundering to the security of the country and how the impact it has on Canadians. Mr. Speaker, through Budget 2019, we're investing over $162 million in restoring the RCMP, FinTrack, CBSA, and CRA's capacity to deal with this. And it's an ironic question, Mr. Speaker, to receive from the Conservatives, who cut the budget for those units, and under their watch, in 2013, all 12 integrated proceeds of crime units across Canada were eliminated because they defunded it and understaffed us.
Order. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, we've learned an alleged Chinese cartel drug boss used a Liberal MP's law firm to launder money through a BC condo purchase. The Bear Trust deal in 2011 allowed a key member of the Big Circle Boys to conceal his investment of almost $9 million in a BC property. That property flipped 4 years later for almost $15 million. Mr. Speaker, has the MP for Steveston Richmond East ever lobbied members of Cabinet on Bear Trust deals, mortgage rules, money laundering laws, or FinTrack reporting?
Honourable Minister of Border Security and Organised Crime Reduction.
And again, I'm so interested to see the newfound interest on the issue of money laundering by a government that eliminated nearly $500 million from the law enforcement agencies who were tasked with keeping our financial instruments secure and maintain the integrity of our finances. Mr. Speaker, they almost gutted the RCMP's capacity to do this. And as was recently discovered in British Columbia, as a direct result of their cuts, there were no dedicated resources to conduct money laundering. Mr. Speaker, we're reversing that. We're working closely with the province of British Columbia. We are going to make a difference.
Order. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Order. Mr. Speaker, Bear Trust deals are blamed for creating a veil of secrecy for international criminals trying to hide and launder proceeds of crime. A BC inquiry is expected to focus on a loophole that exempts Canadian lawyers from reporting suspicious transactions to Canada's anti-money laundering watchdog. Now, we learn the Liberal member's firm was seized by the BC Law Society in April, and he's been removed from the BC bar. Are we really expected to believe the member for Steveston Richmond East hasn't lobbied Cabinet, that the Prime Minister isn't aware of this developing scandal?
The Honourable Minister of Border Security and Organised Crime Reduction.
Mr. Speaker, I recall well in 2012 when the RCMP conducted an investigation into a lawyer who was involved in money laundering, a well-known Conservative supporter. And I remember at his trial after his conviction when well-known Conservative future cabinet ministers gave character evidence on his behalf. Mr. Speaker, our government has highlighted in a recent Department of Finance report a discussion paper working with the legal community in order to further explore how the legal community can address the issue of legal professionals being used to facilitate money laundering and terrorism.
My Lord.
Order, please.
Honourable member will come to order. I've heard from him quite a bit today, but he hasn't had the floor. Order.
The honourable member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, last May, at the Status of Women Committee, I had the opportunity to discuss with the Minister of International Development and Gender Equality about the Women Deliver Conference. In my riding of Vimy and across the country and the world, women are concerned about gender equality. Can the Minister inform the House about measures taken during this historic event?
Last week, the women of the world united with Canada to support a path where women will be leaders equal in their communities, a path for equal pay and the $12 trillion boost to the global economy. What I heard loud and clear was the rejection of those attempting to roll back our hard-won gains, including a woman's right to choose. Women have the right to decide their reproductive health. It is astounding that in Canada, in 2019, we continue to doubt the support of Conservative politicians for a woman's right to choose.
The honourable member for Lakeland. Order.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect the Liberals to approve the Trans Mountain expansion because they already approved it once before, back in 2016. In fact, construction was supposed to be done in the next 6 months, but 3.5 years later, not a single inch has been built. Then the Liberals said spending billions of tax dollars would get the expansion built, quote, immediately. That was more than a year ago. So the question is, what exactly is the plan to ensure construction of the Trans Mountain expansion starts in Burnaby on June 19th?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the review process that was put in place by the previous government, Harper government, led to a number of large infrastructure projects in the courts where courts have determined that...
It was very quiet when the question was being asked. It should be equally quiet when the answer is being given, whether members like what they hear or not. Order. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that Conservatives want us to follow the rules that led to large number of projects being overturned by the Federal Court of Appeal, right? We are following a path forward that is given to us, and
no regard to this place.
And following that path forward, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we are engaging with...
The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill, if he wishes to sing, can sing outside. And any more singing today, he'll be outside in a hurry. The honourable member,
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, the Phoenix pay fiasco has affected many workers in my riding, particularly at the Mauricie National Park. For example, Mr. Jean-Guy Lomprand, a resident of Saint-Mathieu-du-Parc, who works for Parks Canada, hasn't received his pay since last March, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, the Liberal government continues to pay millions into an IBM contract. If ministers weren't being paid, I'm sure this issue would already be solved a long time ago. Can the Liberal government commit to fixing this issue and pay workers correctly? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, of course, this is National Public Service Week, and I'd like to underscore our recognition to the public service, which is spectacular. We are committed to reducing the queue in the Felix pay system. We're not like the Conservatives. They made false savings by trying to balance the books on this, but we are committed to our public servants, and we are working hard to reduce the queue to nothing. Thank you.
Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, the Port of Halifax plays a key role for businesses and employees in my riding of Dartmouth Cole Harbour and to the economy of Atlantic Canada by moving Canadian products to international markets. Can the Minister of Transport please update all Canadians on the progress being made by this Liberal government to invest in good trade infrastructure?
Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I want to thank the member from Dartmouth Cole Harbour for his excellent question and his commitment to the Port of Halifax. You know, we in the Liberal government, we believe in modern infrastructure for transportation and efficient trade corridors. It's good for the economy. That's why I was so pleased to announce 2 historic investments in the Port of Halifax to make it even more efficient and, incidentally, to reduce truck traffic in the Halifax area. Mr. Speaker, we are all about creating good middle-class jobs and growing the economy.
The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the charges may have been dropped in the Admiral Norman affair, but justice has yet to be served. Under the Queen's regulations and orders of the National Defence...
I apologize to the member, but I understand once again we have a little problem with the interpretation. It seems to be working now. The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, I ask her to restart her question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The charges may have been dropped in the Admiral Norman affair, but justice has yet to be served. Under the Queen's regulations and orders of the National Defence Act, now that his name has been cleared, Admiral Norman should have been honourably returned to his position as Vice Chief of the Defence Staff. But that hasn't happened. When will the Minister of National Defence do his job, uphold the law, and order the Chief of the Defence Staff to reinstate Mark Norman as our Canadian Armed Forces?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, that first of all, General Vance, as Chief of Defence Staff, has a responsibility, and give him the space to be able to have the discussions with Admiral Norman in terms of his duties. I have the utmost faith in the defence team and the leadership to move forward in a way that upholds the values and integrity of the great institution. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, the government says it wants to ratify the new NAFTA quickly, but it's not in such a rush to compensate our supply management sector. These farmers haven't received a cent yet for the other 2 free trade deals. The minister promised to at least announce the terms in June, but still nothing, and they're not going to receive anything before the elections. Before requesting a blank check for NAFTA, will the government have the decency to send farmers checks? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Foreign Affairs. The Liberal government created supply management, and the Liberal government is defending it. It's important. When we negotiated this deal, well, they tried to dismantle the supply management system, but what was most important was to protect this future of supply management. We also have to reassure my colleague that farmers will be fully compensated. The Honourable Member for Joliette. We're still waiting for details, and the problem is that the last 2 trade agreements were ratified with a promise to compensate dairy producers, but they never saw this money, not 1 cent, neither for CETA nor the TPP. And now the government wants to trick us a 3rd time. They would like to ratify it without compensation measures on the table. No way. Does this government understand that without compensation, there should be no ratification? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Inaudible. We have to include dairy farmers. So the government defended the supply management system despite the U.S.'s efforts to dismantle it. And I'd like to reassure all dairy farmers that they will be compensated fairly. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs. Since it launched in 2011, successive governments have spent over $500 million on the Nutrition North program. In that time, the number of households in Nunavut affected by food insecurity has risen from 33 to over 50%. With results that bad, we should call it the Phoenix Food Program. Minister Nunavummiut 1 answers. Will you open an inquiry into Nutrition North so we can understand why it has failed so spectacularly and find a way to ensure food security for our communities?
Good question. I remind the member from Nunavut to direct his questions to the chair. Of course, if one says no, one says you in the House is referring to the chair. I don't think he intends to do that. The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, it is completely unacceptable that many Northerners are still struggling to feed their families. Our government has expanded Nutrition North to support a total of 116 isolated communities, although we know that more needs to be done. We know that the support for harvesters and the access to country food is very, very important to Northerners, but also we are very pleased that CanNor is also supporting pilot projects that will allow made-in-community solutions to find those solutions for those very communities that the member talks about.
Here. I wish to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Her Excellency Deka Yassin, Minister of Women and Human Rights Development for the Federal Republic of Somalia. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I actually have found the heckling so bad in this corner that I even feel intimidated to raise the point that we are violating Standing Order 16 and Standing Order 18 when people are yelling so loudly that I have trouble hearing the answers even with my earpiece. I know it makes me unpopular with those who yell to raise this, but I hope Canadians will know that some of us in this place value decorum and are actually embarrassed by the conduct of our fellows. Mr. Speaker, I plead for members to read the standing orders and follow them.
Order. It does sometimes seem like few members have actually read the standing orders. Order, and I appreciate the honourable member's ongoing efforts to assist me in reducing the heckling in this place, and because it does seem